We're
We're
live.
live.
Yes, we are. We
Yeah.
are live. So, hello, everybody. MDCI Mother Daughter Coaching International live here tonight with our founder, Rashki Hazeldine, myself, Tier Banks, and Glenda Monreal Clark. So, we just want to introduce ourselves before we hop right into the conversation. Hopefully, you came with all your questions and you are interested in our mother daughter work. And we look forward to chatting with you. So, Glenda, would you like to introduce yourself to whomever is watching?
Sure. So, my name is Glenda Monroe Clark. I am a licensed mental health therapist in the state of New York in Georgia. And um, I'm the founder of Soul Discovery Mental Health Counseling. We provide mental health services, but we also offer mother daughter work because it's really important and it's the sometimes the foundation of a lot of other work that needs to be explored. So it's a little about me.
Thank you.
Well, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
I'll go next. We'll save the best for last. So, my name is Tier Banks. I'm actually a certified mother daughter coach through MDCI. I am also the outreach. I'm on the outreach team with the social media for Mother Daughter Coaching International, also, and I'm the founder of Mendant Inc. It is a nonprofit that's based in Cleveland, Ohio, and where our mission is to mend broken mother daughter relationships. I also offer virtual mother daughter coaching to women that do not live in Cleveland, Ohio, and Rashka.
Thank you. It's an honor to spend Wednesday evening with two of my stars. So yeah, I'm Roshka Hasseldine. I'm the founder and director of Mother Daughter Coaching International, where we train therapists and coaches on how to work with mothers and daughters and specialize in this area if that's what they choose and become a certified mother daughter coach. The author of two books, Sign Up Female Scream and Mother Daughter Puzzle. So let's chat, ladies. Let's chat.
Let's dive right on in.
Yeah, we were just chatting just before we went live.
Yeah, so let's just pick up where we left off at. I know, Glenda, you brought up some wonderful things before we hit our live button. So if you want to just kind of jump right in with and share with our audience what you were already sharing with us.
Yeah, we were talking about being able to recognize when it's necessary to do mother daughter work, what it feels like, what that looks like, even just coming to that recognition as an individual as well as a therapist, and how pivoting or transitioning into that work can feel. And I just think that's just a really interesting and worthy conversation to have, because I think we can also ultimately we're all looking to get better at some point, right? To strive to better, to strive to have better connections, and to teach the next generation that things can be different. We don't have to keep repeating the same patterns.
Absolutely.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
Yeah. Because you don't always. I think it is good to have sort of an idea, like a picture, in terms of what it feels like and what it looks like to sort of be at the place where actually some mother-daughter therapeutic coaching would be helpful, either as a couple or even individually.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think sometimes when you're puddling along in your normal, you've got so used to, say, some of the conflict, some of the feelings of emotional disconnection. I'm like, I'm not really, I don't feel that mum gets me, or the daughter, or the mother, or in reverse. Why is the daughter, always seems to be sort of so prickly with me? Why she seems to be avoiding me? And these are just two examples. These countless of these sort of experiences that we can, after a while, we so normalize it and we just put up with it, rather than think, actually, this isn't working. This is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you said that, Rashka. So if and for anybody watching, like, can either of you think of like a sign, like what is something. I know you were just giving examples, or, Rashka, and your as you were speaking, but what are some examples that we as professionals can see when we're helping our clients, like when we know it's time to, do some other daughter work, or even as just women in general, like what are some signs that we can see in our own lives and that, may hint like, okay, it's time to reach out for some help?
Yeah.
I think in response to that directly, I think when we as individuals start to look at maybe some of the conflicts that we're having in other areas, and if everything kind of comes back to, mom, or my mother should have done this, or I hadn't gotten this from my mom, I think that's a really great indication that some work needs to be done there. And I love what Rashka said. She said, sometimes, it can be why are you so prickly with mom, right? And I love that word, like it created a visual of like trying to touch, but that rejection and wanted to, and just not knowing how to approach, walking on eggshells, feeling like I have to say the right thing, feeling as if you're not heard. In a big thing that comes up for me, and I've seen it a lot, is feeling like you're constantly fighting, like misunderstood, misheard. And I think those are some of the things that say, wait, let's go back and let's explore a little bit more.
Yeah.
Good.
And I think I would also add the list, constantly feeling like I've got to put, like particularly daughters, and we talk about that in the training, sort of where the river of nurturing flows backwards. This is classic. And there are so many sort of patriarchal and cultural reasons for this. This is not about blaming mothers in any shape or form, but the daughter's feeling, and this can be, teenage onwards, in fact, even younger, who then feel like I've constantly got to put my needs or my feelings or my desires on the back burner because actually I need to make sure mum's okay first. And that is a generational pattern that is epidemic. Yeah.
And as you said that, Rashka, it just had me thinking of, and I'm just kind of thinking of my own experience, of feeling like you have to somehow protect your mother as well, the protector. And while I think some individuals look at that and think, oh, that's great, it's a great indication of how caring the relationship is. The question is, how much are you not protecting yourself in trying to protect?
Yes, and hiding yourself and not being visible yourself, not having your voice heard or needs met. And if you're having to protect mum, her needs are not being met.
Absolutely.
Actually, so in a sense, you're not doing mum a favor either. And and in those families, sort of in terms of how, and I say those families, this is like so many of our families where, oh, bless you.
Thank you.
When in a sense, family secrets, how men are treating women, it all is sort of silenced, and we've got to just make sure mum's okay. I want to come back to what you said, Glenda, too, about the coming back to, mum should have, mum didn't, because that I think is really important, because particularly at the moment, and as an organization, we talk about this a lot. I talk about training, the real rise in mother blaming at the moment, especially on social media platforms. And I'm afraid also within the therapy and the coaching world, I'm afraid, let's be honest here, and where, in a sense, mum is blamed for whatever might be going on in the daughter's life, or her anxiety or depression, whatever. And also mum is blamed for whatever she never provided. And maybe she didn't, but there is no understanding of why. She couldn't. She didn't have the tools. Nobody provided it for her. She didn't have the support. There's so many countless reasons. So really, that, to me, that is a massive red flag that you really do need to get some mother-daughter work done, because that kind of blaming just pours gasoline on the already roaring fire.
Yeah. And then I'm sorry, go ahead, Glenda.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna ask, so where would you say the line should be drawn between a woman identifying, maybe some emotional wounds that she may have experienced in that relationship, between, from mother blaming. Like, how do you identify, like, this is where this trauma happened in this relationship, but I'm not blaming her? Because I know, as an organization, we try not to use, those popular terms here that, are shameful to moms, and blaming the mothers. But how do we then allow the daughter space to actually express what she has felt without her blaming mom, but, really calling it like it is?
I think that's a very delicate balance. And I think the delicacy of that would be, as you said, allowing the space and using soft eyes, right? Kind of. So while I can say, oh, mom didn't give me XYZ, then the question might be, well, what do you think might have been going on that caused mom not to be able to do that? Or, trying to understand. Now, just because we understand this, I think there's an implication that if you understand something, that means that you're forgiving or that you're overlooking. And I don't think that's really the case, right? I think it's really important to look at things from an understanding perspective, because it's only through understanding we can actually do things that might be different. Because now that I understand why you did something, it doesn't mean that it takes away or erases the hurt and the pain, but I have an opportunity to see that it wasn't intentional, like intentionally throwing the gasoline on top of the fire that's already raging. So I think there's that, using soft eyes is, to me, it's such a magnificent, like, interweave into the therapeutic process, because it removes from being seen this, like, from your perspective, and it gives you a wider view.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself. Exactly. Yeah. It's about, for me, and that's what I try and teach, is the sort of the daughter's reality of what she might have needed, what she needed but didn't get from mom, is right here. It's the standing shoes also. The sort of, it's real, it's important, she needed it. But also right next door, and it might sound inconsistent, but the two stand right next door to each other, is mum's reality. Because if she couldn't give what the daughter needed, it wasn't given to her. And why wasn't it? Like you said, Glenda, the understanding, why wasn't it? Right. And that's where, in a sense, understanding those two realities, and both are real, both are important, both need space, both need acknowledging. You see the wider context, i.e., like I talked about, the mother-daughter conflict is the canary in the coal mine, that is saying there is something within that family system, within the society, within the culture, that has actually stopped these two women from experiencing what they needed in their relationship. And how we then, with that understanding, actually facilitate what they both need, particularly with couples work.
Yeah, and it leads to genuine healing, which I know for me personally, before I was introduced to this framework, coming from being a wounded daughter myself, you think that you're healing yourself by kind of just gaining the awareness. And so many women who walk into my practice, that's what it is. Like, okay, I want to be able to identify what it is that I feel. And then you think you're getting yourself better. But if you don't see your mother with soft eyes, if you aren't able to empathize with her, then no true healing is being facilitated. Like, no true change is happening. Like, awareness isn't enough to heal yourself or the relationship. And so, just seeing her with soft eyes, it was the game changer for me and, for me and my clients, honestly. And it's one that is met with, much resistance, because it's not popular, in this world. It's right now in the grand scheme of things, like, people aren't really promoting the empathetic part, it's no, you have to get what you need. You have to, you know, you have to do what you have to do for yourself. You have to mother yourself. You have to, you know, and that's so temporary. So it leads women like, okay, I can build these, I can get these skills and I could feel alone and I could, you know, put all these boundaries up, but without empathizing and seeing her with soft eyes, it's like, but I'll still never be able to face her and embrace her, you know, without an understanding.
Yeah. Which means, can I then face and embrace myself really?
Right.
Absolutely.
And
the
without,
cycle will continue.
and the cycle will
And
continue.
your daughter will then say the same thing
And
about
she'll be
you.
sitting in your therapist's office. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
As you were talking, I was thinking of the pressure of the mothers, or the pressure on the mothers, right? Culturally, societally, to be perfect and to produce these, I call them mini soldiers that walk around doing everything right.
Yes.
And when you have worked hard as a mother to try and produce this soldier, and that soldier now is saying, no, you didn't. I think of the pressure that mother must feel, and the pressure that the daughter feels at the same time. And so when you said they're both next door to each other, what I see is two individuals with pain, but they both hold the answers to heal each other's pain.
Absolutely.
If they're willing to kind of understand, listen, hear, and sit through the discomfort, right?
Yes.
That I think is very challenging, to sit through the discomfort and hear the things.
It's very it stirs up the dust. That's what I say, because it stirs it all up, and it is hard for mothers who have tried their absolute best to what they thought they needed to do. And often it's like, I drove you everywhere, I put food on the table, I gave you I gave you education but they didn't realize that there was this emotional connection missing, because generationally it is missing. It was missing in her generation, and the grandma's, so the mother's generation. It's missing with the society. So so of course she didn't know, but it's incredibly hard. I know for myself, you know, you just so want to do your best, and then so witnessing the pain that your daughter felt or is currently feeling, like felt in previous situations or is currently feeling, is difficult.
Yes.
But actually in that mirror, you're also seeing your own pain, because you probably had the same pain with your mother. So it's a double whammy, really.
Yeah.
And you know what's really interesting, what came up in my own work, is my mom had shared what it felt like for her to be distanced from her mom through migration and things of that nature.
Yes.
And a lot of times, to prevent the same thing happening again, I would say mothers will put like a standard in, like, this is something I'm never going to do. And so they're showing up in that way because that's what they needed. That may not be the way that the daughter needs. And so now there is this sense of, but I'm giving you, and the daughter's feeling like I'm not receiving. And so it's interesting that the cycle continues. It just looks different now, but it's the same cycle. And so I think it's imperative to start asking, like, or to be okay with asking, what do you need? How can I show up for you? Because and that comes into really helping with understanding, right? Because we can all create our own narrative of what life would be like if we did it this way, if we did it that way. But that narrative may not be the same narrative of the daughter, and it may not be the same narrative for the mom either. So I really think that's a big thing to consider in doing this work as well.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about the mother-daughter relationship being lifelong, you know, and why it's important to have a coach or, you know, a therapist come alongside with this work and really help facilitate the conversation. Because when women try to have this conversation independently, sometimes the voice of the daughter can really, focus on what I didn't get as a child. And then by the time those words actually arrive in a mom's heart, like, okay, now she's trying to give you what you said you didn't get as a child, but you're an adult now and your needs are changing. So as she's trying to, it's always like we're chasing the need. Like, okay, now I'm trying to give you what I didn't give you at 7, but you're 25. So I love what you said, Glenda, about asking what we need. And that's a constant ask at every stage of a woman's life. You have to constantly know what you need, because yes, you may want to have a conversation about what I feel like I didn't get then, but those aren't my current needs. And if I haven't done the work, I'm so hyper focused on what I didn't get then that my current needs are going unmet, and I'll always be in the negative, and the relationship really is chasing its tail. It's really going, nowhere. So I think it's valuable to just have somebody that, can be in on that conversation. Like, okay, it's fine that we're talking about this, we eventually do have to move forward from that, burying the ideal and what you didn't get then. Okay, but what do we need now? Because that's really the only way we're going to see change.
Right. And when you can start to identify what your needs are, it really talks about the individual work that you're doing, right?
Exactly.
So the mother-daughter work, even though it is 2 individuals, there still is a need for individual work, which will, to me, it supports the mother-daughter work, right? Because you're going to walk away with some feelings, like some emotions, some things that are going to come back, right? They're going to come up. You're going to maybe, cry, or you're going to walk around with what could I have done differently. And I think it's important to be able to address that individually, so that now you can come back into the relationship or the work room with the daughter and not be carrying that baggage, right? Because I think as women, historically, we have been the ones that carry the baggage.
Exactly.
So how do we unpack that
Yeah.
where it needs to be unpacked, and then come back in empty to be able to receive and hear and understand and make changes and come up with plans, and then go and unpack what needs to be unpacked. So it's a constant work. It's not something that's just going to end after 2 or 3 or 6 or 9 sessions. It's something that's continual.
Well, it's actually lifelong, particularly because our needs change, because our situations. And I think what you say, Glenda, is so poignant in terms of what's the difference between individual and couples work. Like, when is the need for individual and when is the need for couples work? And so actually working on our own stuff, our own pain, our own what we call, emotional starvation. Like, because if a particular mother or daughter just comes into a couple session starving, hungry, and just fighting to be heard, that is going to make some understanding and communication harder, because you're still in that, who's going to be heard? It's me or her, not both of them. So having done some of the preliminary work in understanding where you've come from and what and the baggage that I think in a minute we could unpack what all this baggage that women carry around.
Yeah.
So that in the couples work, they can really work on the relationship and the connection and the listening.
Yeah.
And there's a component that I'm wondering that is vocabulary. Right.
It's a big one.
It's a very big one.
That's a big one. Yeah.
What particular words mean to different individuals, different generations. And I think sometimes what happens is, because it means this for me, my assumption would be it means the same thing for my mom. And that may not be the case. So here we are talking about the same thing, but not talking about the same thing.
Absolutely.
And feeling more frustrated and unheard. Right?
Yes.
So I think it's important. And again, my big thing is understanding, like, help me understand what you heard. Help me understand what you're saying. Help me, like, how does that feel? How does it show? Like, I want to understand, because I think that's the only place we can begin to make change, when we understand the experience of someone else.
Yes. I'm thinking about some of those terms. Like, what would you say some of those terms are that are commonly, where moms and daughters are constantly just on different pages about
I
about
think
duty.
duty, sacrifice,
I was thinking forgiveness for me.
forgiveness.
That's all the time. Like,
You've got to forgive and forget. In
yeah.
my family generation, it'd be just forgive and forget, i.e. ignore that you've been hurt.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Which, of course, that's not particularly helpful, and it's silencing.
Yes. What about
Also-
boundaries? I know boundaries is a new one, but it's foreign to some of our, some of our moms don't know anything about, about that.
A big one that comes up for me is the word respect.
Yes. Culturally too.
Yes.
Culturally, because respect looks very different.
Yes.
And respect, or what is identified as respect, could also be invalidating your own feelings and emotions in the moment.
Yes.
So, and that just kind of spirals into a lot of other things, right? But respect and honor
and obedience.
And obedience, yeah.
And obedience, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some families have respect. In my family, Dutch family immigrated to New Zealand. Obedience, respect equals obey. Yeah.
Yes.
Do without asking, just do it. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And any rebuttal, I know in the African American, in our culture, any rebuttal that you have to anything that your mom says, is seen as disrespectful. It wasn't accepted, in her time. So you having an opinion, kids don't have opinions. Kids are just seen, they're not heard. Like, you just do it.
Yeah. And then also the challenge of trying to live in that box of respect, ignore my emotions, my feelings. And then when you're out in the world and now you have to show up differently, not being able to do that, and now being almost like reprimanded and yelled at for not showing up in the world, with your own feelings, your own thoughts. However, in the home, sometimes if it wasn't welcome that you had a voice and you had a thought, you can't carry that outside to now apply that elsewhere. Yeah. And so then it becomes like, how did I raise you? I didn't raise you to speak up for yourself. And so now there becomes this back and forth uncertainty of what needs to happen or what life should look like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it feels like it's like the creation of the full self. You have to be this one self at home, another self out in the world, and you're not given the tools to be that other self anyway. And one self and the other self is, the home self is keep silent. And then I think for women being out in the world, there's also the self that patriarchy expects of being the good girl, of not being aggressive, i.e., which assertive is defined as aggressive. So there's, you don't know.
Yeah,
it really messes with your mind.
Yeah, and then you see it, and in some cases where women are, once they leave home, they are able to find, a place among friends or among a community that does accept them and do allow them to, speak up and be themselves. And then that makes it hard for them to return home. It makes it hard for them to want to pursue a relationship with their mother, because then they have to put this fake self on again, in their eyes. They're like, she don't know me. I can't be me. I have to go here and be quiet. But here with them, they just love and accept me, so that makes it hard, too.
Yeah. And then the daughter comes home more authentic and in a sense and perhaps you're talking about generational differences with opportunities and a sort of empowerment that mum never got to have, never got to be, doesn't understand, is scary to her because she doesn't understand it, but also it's criticized within the family. And then that is another point where actually mother-daughter work needs to be done. Yeah.
But mom is blamed, like she's blamed for being, Yeah, she's the one. She's the one who don't allow me to be myself. It's her fault, but she does not know. And like Glenda and you have already said, like without that understanding, like she'd love to, you being that uncomfortable mirror, the daughter being the uncomfortable mirror. So she loved to be as brave as you are and, go find herself and speak her needs and use her voice. But she's really looking like, wow, how did you get to do that? Like, I don't even know what that is. Who are you?
Yeah.
And it can be, it can be real, it can play, right? Because it's something that's really upsetting and annoying because you're moving away from the norm, and something that is revered as, oh my God, that's amazing. And I think the mother also has that conflict within, because how can these two things both be true at the same time?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Which is dialectic.
Absolutely.
Two things that seem opposite can both be true at the same time. And so I can hate and love that thing at the same time. Hate it because it challenges me and it shows me what I wanted to do and couldn't do because society refused to allow me the space to do that. And I'm so proud that my child is able to do that. And I think just holding those two truths sometimes becomes so uncomfortable, and we feel like we have to pick one or the other. We end up having that internal fight, and then it shows externally.
Absolutely.
And that's where therapy and mother-daughter coaching is vitally important, to give a voice for the space for the mother to voice her grief. And that's what we talk about. It's instead of jealousy, it's actually grief about how she never got the support, the encouragement, and things she never got to be able to do, but also to be able to voice her being proud of her daughter. Because in that either or, that voice can sometimes be lost.
Yeah. Not to mention the fear that she might have, for her daughter being brave. I'm proud of you, but I'm also afraid of what it may cost you. The family may shun you. Like the fear that she's always had, like it really, and it's still love. Like it, it becomes our task to just still share with the daughter. It's still love. Like it ultimately is love. It may manifest itself as something different, but
it's still love.
She really does not hate you,
Even though it might feel that way.
It may feel that way.
Right.
It may feel that way. And you don't want to minimize the pain that it does cause. And it does hurt you, but this is why.
Yeah. It's the same old thing because that's where understanding the patriarchal culture that mothers and daughters live in and how that impacts the relationship. It's the same as, are you wearing that? Are you going out in that? That sort of, and the fear of, is my daughter going to be safe?
Absolutely.
In a society where women walking the street are not safe?
What are they going to think of her?
And that's the same.
How are they going to accept her?
Exactly. And it's the same with our voice in terms of, if the mother has learnt that actually being assertive does not get you liked, does not get you noticed, it gets you criticized, then if the daughter claims her assertiveness, fear, then, oh my gosh, my daughter's going, who's going to harm her? Who's going to criticize her?
Which is the perfect opportunity for that individual work, because if the mom did the individual work to challenge, her own inner voice and those beliefs and, put to sleep those myths about the world will accept her, then she would be able to kind of be able to be different for her daughter.
Rashka, you used the word, and I think you said like assertive, right? Wants to be able to assert. And what struck a nerve for me is that word assertive it looks very different in different communities and different cultures. And also, I don't really know if we fully understand or have a good or a well enough picture of what assertiveness actually looks like, because it can come across very aggressive and bossy, and that may not be the message that you want to communicate. But because you've been locked in a box for so long, saying this is how you must act, now there's a little freedom. It can come across like really strong and powerful.
Yeah.
And so what the mom might see as assertive might seem actually more aggressive.
Yes.
Right. And now that's rejected, causing more silence. So it's really interesting how the cycle, if we're not careful, we just keep adding layers on. And I think it just, again, it comes back to like stopping and understanding, stopping and having a conversation, communicating. So I've often said to clients, communication is not saying I'm going to the store, I'll be back at 10. Communication is a dialogue between two individuals who leave that conversation with a common understanding.
Yes.
And if we're not leaving it with a common understanding, then that means that we really haven't communicated. We've just like kind of dropped nuggets. Being able to walk away with understanding how the other person feels, what their thoughts were, what was their intention with this interaction, instead of creating that narrative afterwards, because we just kind of like said, oh, I'm going to do this, or this is what you did to me. Asking the question, what does that mean? Why? How did you hear that? Is that like, maybe that's not what I intended? And being able to kind of sit in that, and that space is very uncomfortable. It's not easy to sit there, but being willing to sit in that space.
Yet, and I agree with you, it isn't comfortable to sit in it, but it's also actually also freeing, because you also experience being understood from behind your own eyes. That's what you're talking about, Glenda. The sort of seeing what was it like, what someone said or did or done, what was going on behind their eyes, like their intention, what their reality was, and the receivers, what was going behind their eyes, and in terms of when they received whatever was said or was done. So there isn't like, actually, even though it's uncomfortable, it can also actually make you breathe better.
Absolutely.
Gives you space to be, I'm known, I'm understood more. It's,
and I think for both moms and daughters, they're scared to sit in that space because it can feel like it's never going to end. And so I think it's the therapist's responsibility to really, I say to the therapists that work at Soul Discovery, sit in the mud with them. Sit in that discomfort with them and help usher them out.
Yes.
But if you don't sit in, if you're not part of it, then ultimately what happens is they don't get out.
They're going to get stuck in the mud.
Experience the freedom.
Yes.
And what I experience, if a mother and daughter couple really get motivated and really willing to understand what's been going on generationally, what's going on between the two of them, and really learn about each other, change comes quicker than they think. There is that fear like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sitting here forever. Not really. And I'm not the kind of therapist anyway. It's like I said, get in, get sorted, get out. It's like, I don't like you. I do like you, but it's like, it shouldn't be sitting there forever. Because I think it's important to then become your own best therapist, so that you can do what we do in the session with each other. So you actually become each other's coach. I mean, and to me, that is the power of the mother-daughter relationship.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to ask you two ladies. I'm sorry, Glenda, would you like to share? I was going to ask a different question. So do you want to?
No, it's okay.
Okay. I wanted to ask the two of you, when you're working with moms and daughters, like, how do you, like, what types of mothers and daughters do you have to say, you're not ready for this work yet? Like, what behaviors or traits do they display?
Depending on the difference between individual and couples, you mean?
Yeah. So you can classify differently too. Like, if you want to do it separately, the individuals and then the couples, like, what do they show you?
Sometimes the central nervous system becomes overstimulated, and one person like just shuts down. It's like stonewalling. Like
Okay.
they're here, but they're not here.
Okay.
Also, another thing is, eye contact is very important. So it's
Okay.
almost like miles away, but in the room, but not present.
Okay.
And it might be too painful for either of them to be present. But when I don't want to say but, when a therapist is working hard to engage and they just are showing that they can't sit in it,
Okay.
then I think that's one of the things I look for and say, we have to get some stabilization work done
Okay.
individually before we can come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say I would agree with that. I think also, and the other version of shut down is if, say, a mother or daughter want couples work, but both of them are sort of so fighting to be heard, there is no emotional room. And I see that's a symptom of so starved, so emotionally starved. They've never been heard enough. And my goodness, now I'm going to have the opportunity to be heard, and I'm going to grab every minute of it. And I so understand where that's come from, but actually that's when that couples work won't work there, because you'll constantly be fighting to be heard rather than learn to listen. So the ability to learn to listen, to be able to listen at some level, not fully, otherwise you don't need to be there, but at some level, I think is important for couples. But and dealing with your own your own history of silence and neglect in individual work and healing that. Though I do, so that's a general rule of thumb. I do think there is a space and real value in the daughter hearing the mother's history, because it's her history too. So I think there's phenomenal value in the daughter hearing and really understanding who mum is outside of her role as mother, and sitting in we don't even know who she is. Doesn't know who she is, and what's happened in her life, the support she's not had, the encouragement she's not had, maybe career options she's not had, and importantly, not just the stories of it, how that affected her. That is the absolute vital bit of it. Without that, there is not enough understanding how it emotionally affected her. For the daughter to hear all that, I think this is something valuable, because that is the ingredients of seeing mums with soft eyes and having empathy and seeing this, and actually the other thing too, seeing the strength and the resilience and the wisdom in women's lives to survive, right, in situations where they just didn't get enough. I think, it's invaluable, actually.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I think that's very, hearing the story. There's so much in history, right? There's a tremendous richness. And sometimes they query what stops a child from wanting to hear the history. And sometimes it's because it goes back to that starvation and emotional starving. History can seem so overpowering that the daughter feels like there's no space. I can't see myself in this. There's no space.
Exactly. Yes.
So I think it's important to also be wise enough to have a balance of how much we're going to share and be able to see when it's too much. And I just think that, again, that comes back to the understanding and the more work and coaching that they do together and with a coach, it will help be able to identify, like, this is too much, because now the daughter can feel like, okay, I have to caretake you, and now
that's not that about right. Exactly. But also seeing where that caretaking belief comes from, because mum probably the same, but yes. Absolutely. But that's the wisdom of a mother-daughter coach or therapist, to be able to navigate that and to be in tune with what each of them, what's going on for each of them, and to sort of guide them through that process. That's
Absolutely.
a skill. Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely.
Ladies, we have talked for nearly 40 minutes.
And the time went so fast.
Yeah. We could talk forever.
I know.
Yeah.
There's so much to discuss, like this is such a complex relationship.
And a beautiful one, I might say.
A beautiful one.
Because sometimes when we think of complexities, we think because it's complex, we're just going to push it to the side. But I think there's so much value in the mother-daughter relationship. There's so much value in it. So while it's complex, it's extremely valuable.
I agree.
And powerful.
Powerful.
I know it's not just a belief. I know that the mother-daughter relationship is key to empowering women, changing generational patterns, to women's rights, equality, which is why it's marginalized, because it's too powerful to touch. But yeah.
So any closing thoughts that either of you would like to leave our viewers with tonight?
Do the work. Be willing. For therapists, I think this is just a great platform and a module to learn or to take another way of working with mothers and daughters from a woman's perspective, instead of being from a perspective of just like another modality, but really being in that. So I would encourage any therapist to look into the mother-daughter coaching, what that looks like. The book is amazing. Even if you just read it for yourself and you go through it, there's so much that you will find, even though like it's fabulous. And to be willing to try it. I would say that, for the clients or the mothers and daughters who are struggling, try making that first phone call, right? And just to be able to understand where someone else is coming from, where your daughter is coming from, where your mother is coming from. When you walk away, there has to be, or there will be, some kind of shifting.
Yes, I love that. I would echo that. And don't be, in a sense, I know it can be scary, but there's so much insight that can bring space, freedom, strength, love, understanding. It's actually, it very rarely is love lacking. It's not about lack of love. It's like you've got concrete's been poured over it in terms of what's the neglect and the patriarchy, violence, and whatever is experienced. It sort of breaks it up so that actually you can both thrive together. I think, And for therapists out there, have a look at our training, because I think even if you don't want to work with mothers and daughters, but you work with women, this training will help you see your female clients in very different ways, and with so much clarity, much more clarity and depth. You'll have an understanding of their life. So, and thank you, Glenda, for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
You're one of mine. So, yes.
So, Glenda, before we hop off, can you tell our viewers where they can find you, like how they can get in touch with you?
So we have a website. It's www.souldiscoverymhc, as in mentalhealthcounseling.com. We're also on Psychology Today, Therapy for Black Girls, and we were on, I'll be going back on, Christian therapists as well, because we do have, there's that spiritual component that impacts the mother-daughter relationship as well, and being able to provide those services. So you can start always at our website, and then of course I think I'm also on the mother-daughter.
You find the coach page. You're on the
Yes,
phone. Yes.
Coach page.
Motherdaughtercoach.com. Tiara, do you want to put it in the comments?
Yeah, I can post that in the
Put motherdaughtercoach.com and also Glenda's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either one, you'll get to Glenda.
That's that.
And then Rashka, before we leave, would you just let our viewers know, like, what do we have coming? When is the next course beginning?
The next
and what they can enroll in now.
They can enroll anytime. The enrollments are just ongoing. If the course is full, because our courses are capped at 8 students, because I think that's enough. Because I want to mirror the giving plenty of space for discussion, for understanding. Next course, September the 11th. There's another course and another course that starts in October.
Okay.
Yeah. And what was Glenda? What was your website?
Yeah, Glenda, was it Soul Discovery?
Yes, AmazonMaryHC.com.
So Soul Discovery MHC.
Yes.
.com. Okay.
Discovery.
Excellent.
Soul Discovery.
Yeah, and if you want information about the training, it's on motherdaughtercoach.com.
Yes, I put motherdaughtercoach.com. And then also for our viewers who aren't professionals, clinicians, therapists, or coaches, we also have short courses available for just mothers and daughters who just kind of want to do the work independently. We have those courses available also at motherdaughtercoach.com.
Yeah. And do you want to put your website down too, Tiara?
Oh, sure. Forgot about that.
Yeah, this one can't leave you out of the picture.
Yes, and I'm also on Find a Coach page under the U.S. Both Glenda and I are in the U.S.
Yes.
Well, all of us tonight. So all of us tonight are here in America.
We are, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think I'm on the US and the UK.
You're on the UK too, because
Okay.
yes, because people are listed from where they live and where they've been.
Oh, okay.
Where they've lived before.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, but they are listed by country. So yeah, UK or the US. Cool.
Nice.
Thank
All right,
you
well,
so
we will
much.
see you all. We'll be back on live on June 14th, I believe.
I think
It's
that's
June 14th. Don't quote me on that. We
Yeah.
hope you enjoyed our conversation tonight, whether you're catching this live or on the replay. Be sure to check out the websites that are listed in the comments. We love to hear your feedback. We love to see you in a course. And as always, we're here for all things mother-daughter relationships. Thank you both, ladies, for spending your evening with us.
Yes, I'll just end the broadcast, shall I?
All righty. Yes.
Yes, just end the broadcast.
Okay.